Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom or Tom. How's it going?
Tony, there's been news that has caught some people off guard the last few days. I don't think this show is probably going to fall in that bucket. If you're hearing this for the first time, you may want to sit down. But, Tony, are you sitting down? Looks like you're sitting down. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Downs is declaring for the NFL draft and is going to forego his final season of college. I thought like 80% chance he's going pro in something other than sport, but apparently he is taking his shot and trying to dream those NFL dreams. I'm sure as shocked as you are.
I thought he might try to make it last in podcasting, and that would be his foray. And if you want to stick into sports, not good enough as a player, but you want to be around the game, you just go with the podcasting. It's very easy to do. Almost anybody can do it. But he's going to take the hard road. He's going to try to keep playing football, and I expect him to be quite successful at it. And to hear other NFL people talk to him and about this, they're like, "Oh, you're going to be. You can't wait." I know. I'm telling you, you can't wait for this because of the high level football that you get to talk, that you get to prepare, that you get to play, and this has kind of been like. Time when I went to Ohio State, and there was a 10-year-old that was making news because he was also attending Ohio State, and of course, probably attending higher classes than mine. And this is kind of like Caleb Downs, like the 10-year-old in college football, and it's like in terms of like he's beyond this. He should be beyond this. College football is. He's talking to coaches. Tim Walton said it in the spring that they have high level football conversations. Now Caleb Downs will take those high-level football conversations with him to the NFL. And I guess, Tom, you go into the portal to get him, and you have this guy that is, granted, he wasn't the tackling machine. He had to be at Alabama, but he did so many other things. And it cost you some money, but that was never really a concern. I think that the good thing is you had a once-in-a-generation player, and you were able to win a national championship with him. So I think in that way, I think that's the biggest thing here is that his time at Ohio State didn't go to waste for either one of them.
Yeah, I think when he came into Ohio State, going into his freshman year, he was a little like Jeremiah Smith, where you kept hearing people talk about him in a way that people don't talk about people who are going into their freshman year. And you kept hearing it, and it was like, okay, all right. And then you saw it on the field, and he was just immediately playing safety for Nick Saban, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do, and doing it at a really high level. And then when Saban retired, coming to Ohio State, of all the guys that they've brought in terms of transfers over the years, I think he is the one who felt like the surest thing, the one who, if he comes in and isn't an All-American at Ohio State, something has gone horrifically wrong. And just consistently lived up to that billing, and to come in with that level of expectation, and then to just never a doubt, like never a question, never like well, I don't know, you're hearing some mixed things about him, like, oh, he had a bad day at practice, like you never heard it. And it was him, teammates, coaches, anyone around the program, anyone you heard from. He always was, however high the expectations were, lived up to those expectations individually, but also in terms of just impact on the guys around him. He was phenomenal, but just always made the guys around him better, because he always, guys talked about him, he always had the answers. If you had a question, he always had the answers. It was like, when the old timey baseball, like it's the player coach, like, but he's also the best player on the team. That was the really unique thing that he brought to Ohio State.
Well, and it's ironic or interesting that he's leaving a year early, but he's essentially always been a senior. Like he was a senior as a freshman at Alabama. He led the Crimson Tide with 107 tackles as a true freshman. Second place guy, 67 tackles, 40 more tackles than the next guy. He had 30 more solo tackles than anybody else on the team. And he was a freshman All-American. Then he comes to Ohio State. He's an All-American in 2024 as a sophomore, unanimous as a sophomore, unanimous as a junior. Big Ten Defensive Back of the Year both years, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year this year, Thorpe Award winner this year for the Buckeyes, and Lott Trophy winner as just like the Lott Trophy. I guess I would say it's the best player plus citizen plus dude, and that's who the award goes to every year. And I think that describes Caleb Downs because he's always just about business in terms of and shoot, that's podcast Downs to Business. That's that's what they call it. But like you never heard any outside noise in terms of, there's no trouble or anything like that. He's just serious about the game and a coach's dream, and Ohio State had him for 2 years, and I think they got as much out of him as they could. And Matt Patricia, if you want to hear somebody say some glowing things about somebody, just ask Matt Patricia about Caleb Downs or Ryan Day, and they'll just go on and on and on about him, and for good reason. And now he is off to the NFL. Tom, I remember talking with an NFL guy after his freshman year, like that winter, saying if he came out now, he'd be a top 10 pick just because of the impact that he had. And now, again, he's going to be somewhere in there. Doesn't have the, like, he's 6 foot, not the biggest guy, but I don't think anybody cares about that because they just know that he's going to come in and he's one of the safest guys in the draft. There's very, very little concern that he won't be with you for the first 5 years. You'll pick up the 5th-year option, don't worry, and then whatever happens after that is up to the market. But a very safe draft pick.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like the floor for him is all-pro contender, all-pro caliber type player. If he's healthy, he's at least in that conversation at the NFL level. And then, and at that point you're getting into, okay, if that's the floor, if he's healthy, then okay, consistent all-pro is kind of in that, that's probably well within the bounds of conversation. And then, wearing an ugly yellow jacket in Canton at some point, that's well within the bounds of possibility as well, 15, 20 years from now, whatever it is. But yeah, he is as sure a thing, I think, as you could kind of envision for one of the players from Ohio State over the last few years. Going back, let's just go back sort of start of the century, 2000. So, this is a Michael Doss and since kind of conversation. Where does Caleb Downs rank in terms of the best defensive players overall from Ohio State, 2000 to the present? I haven't, sat down and made out a list, but I feel like I would be hard pressed to go much past like 5 and before I wrote his name down.
Yeah, and you can't just look at numbers. You also have to think about how people talk about him and the way coaches use him. But yeah, and it's like his season does not equal Malik Hooker's in 2019 in terms of stats because that was outrageous. But I don't know that Matt Patricia is taking Malik. I don't think Matt Patricia is taking Malik Hooker over Caleb Downs, and they play different roles in this. But yeah, Tom, that you just brought up at the end of the show a podcast idea for some other time. Right. Mm-hmm. We will talk about that. But yeah, I mean, if you're drafting just Ohio State football players, like, yeah. And in terms of like the can't miss thing, I remember thinking like AJ Hawk can't miss. And he ended up maybe not being as good as the number 5 pick, but I think he left Green Bay as their all-time leading tackler. So it's like, I guess that's pretty good. In terms of replacing him, we will also talk about that more down the road because we're still figuring out who Ohio State is going to grab into the portal. We've did a previous show about, hey, why not Minnesota's Coy Parrish? Wouldn't that be just an easy fix? And nobody's going to be Caleb Downs. So go ahead and just understand that right now. Whoever they get, they're going to have to do something different with, and they'll be doing something different on the field. And you may not get exactly Caleb Downs, but nobody's expecting that, and you should not expect it. But there you go. Caleb Downs off to the NFL, shocking the world with that announcement, and he will end up being very, very good, as we know. So that will do it from here. If you could, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. Hit the bell to be notified. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. I know you already have, and we appreciate that. We appreciate all of you who have, and, of course, continue to appreciate those of you who find us over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all. That will do it from here, and we'll talk to you all later.